Aria, you're not the woman I want beside me anymore.
Cole's hand tightened around the microphone as the Willow Crest Grand Ballroom fell silent. Hundreds of eyes shifted toward Aria, standing alone beneath the golden chandelier, her silver dress catching the light like shattered glass. Cole's voice trembled, not with love, but with the cruel confidence he had learned from Jenna Lowe, the junior colleague he thought adored him. "Aria," he said loudly, "you're not the woman I want by my side anymore. Let's stop pretending." Gasps rippled. Someone whispered her name, but Aria didn't flinch, not even when Jenna boldly stepped to Cole's side, smiling like she had already won. What Aria did next, no one in that room was prepared for. Before we reveal what Aria did in that shocking moment, and how her silence changed every life in that ballroom, make sure you're fully locked in. If you love emotional billionaire dramas, stories of betrayal, hidden identities, and jaw-dropping twists, then don't just watch, become part of the community. Hit subscribe, tap like, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and share this video so more people can join the journey. Ready? Because Aria's next move didn't just end a marriage. It shattered the illusion Cole built around himself and exposed a truth he was never prepared to face. Let's begin. 2 years earlier, Aria Dalton never expected her life to shift a night. She met Cole Mercer at a small cafe along the Richmond waterfront. She had been sitting near the window, nursing a warm cup of chamomile tea, trying to blend into the quiet world she chose for herself. Cole walked in drenched from a sudden rainstorm, his shirt clinging to his shoulders as he juggled 2 coffees. He nearly collided with her table, stuttering an apology that made her look up and smile. Aria wasn't used to men being awkward around her. They were usually intimidated. But Cole saw only a simple woman with a shy smile, not the hidden heiress she truly was. That was the moment her heart made its first mistake. Cole returned to that cafe every morning after their first encounter, pretending it was coincidence even though both of them knew it wasn't. He asked her about simple things, favorite colors, childhood memories, the food she secretly craved at midnight. Aria answered carefully, weaving half-truths to protect her identity while still allowing him into pieces of her heart. She loved how he listened, leaning forward like every word she said mattered. He told her he admired how grounded she was, how she felt real in a world full of pretense. Aria swallowed her guilt each time, because if he ever discovered who she truly was, Aria Kingsley, daughter of Governor Richard Kingsley, everything would change, and she desperately wanted a love untouched by power. Their first official date was a quiet walk along the James River, the air cool and the sky painted with fading shades of orange. Cole talked about how he climbed from nothing, working late shifts and taking risks until he finally secured a position at Mercer Tech. Aria listened, fascinated not by his accomplishments but by the sincerity in his voice. She kept her hands tucked in her coat, afraid he would feel how intensely she trembled whenever he brushed close. Every moment felt strangely peaceful, like the world had shrunk to just the 2 of them. That night when Cole walked her home, he stopped outside her door, hesitating before whispering that he hadn't felt this comfortable with someone in years. Aria smiled softly, knowing she felt the same, yet terrified of the truth she still hid. Aria grew up in a world where every decision was scrutinized. The way she dressed, who she spoke to, the doors she opened, and the ones she ignored. Being the daughter of a governor meant cameras, expectations, and endless whispers about her future. She had spent her entire life suffocating beneath her last name. Her smile rehearsed, her answers polished to perfection. But with Cole, she could breathe. He didn't look at her like she carried a legacy worth billions. He looked at her like she was simply Aria, the woman who laughed too easily and loved thunderstorms. That's why she chose not to reveal her real name, Kingsley. Not yet. Maybe not ever. She wanted one part of her life to be untouched by politics and power. With Cole, she hoped she'd found something honest, something gentle, something real. When Cole finally asked her to be his girlfriend, he stood outside her apartment clutching a bouquet of white peonies, the only flowers he remembered her mentioning. His voice cracked as he admitted he wasn't perfect, that he sometimes worked too hard, that he carried insecurities he didn't know how to shake off. Aria's chest tightened with something warm. She saw a man trying, a man vulnerable enough to open his heart without needing to impress her with money or status. She didn't need diamonds. She didn't need luxury. She needed sincerity, and Cole offered her that. So she nodded, tears building, and whispered yes. She kissed him, praying that the truth she kept hidden wouldn't one day tear them apart. The months that followed were some of the happiest of Aria's life. She and Cole cooked dinner together in her small kitchen, danced barefoot on the balcony during warm summer nights, and took long drives to the peaceful Richmond suburbs. Aria kept her world small, intentionally avoiding situations that could expose her identity. She didn't invite him to her father's estate. She didn't speak about her childhood. She used a prepaid phone instead of secure one assigned by the governor's office. Cole thought it was charming that she lived so simply. He had no idea she had stepped down from a life of privilege to test whether love could exist without titles. Aria believed his love was genuine, pure enough to justify every lie she told to protect the fragile life they were building. When Cole proposed, Aria genuinely forgot how to breathe. He brought her to a quiet spot overlooking the city skyline, where the lights shimmered like 1,000 tiny wishes waiting to be granted. He dropped to one knee, his voice shaking as he told her she felt like home. Aria pressed her hand to her chest, overwhelmed by the sincerity in his eyes. She had never imagined a man choosing her without knowing her background, without seeing the wealth she carried in her bloodline. She said yes because for the first time in her life, love felt untouched by influence. The ring he gave her was simple, silver with a small stone, and that simplicity meant more than any expensive jewel ever could. Their wedding was small and intimate, exactly as Aria requested. Cole assumed she preferred simplicity. He didn't know she did it to avoid cameras and avoid exposing her identity to his colleagues. Only a handful of people stood beneath the willow trees along the riverbank as they exchanged vows. Aria's father watched from a distance, hidden behind tinted car windows, obeying her wish not to overshadow her day. Cole kissed her with so much tenderness that Aria felt hope bloom in her chest. She believed she had finally escaped the suffocating expectations of her old life. With Cole, she could be a wife, not a political symbol. She could be loved for her heart, not her inheritance. She walked down the aisle believing their life would be peaceful and beautiful, never imagining how quickly everything would unravel. Married life started beautifully, but slowly, something in Cole began to shift. The man who once rushed home to cook dinner now stayed late at work. The affectionate notes he used to leave on the counter disappeared. His complaints grew sharper. He seemed restless, distracted, and occasionally irritable over small things Aria didn't understand. When Aria asked if something was wrong, he brushed her off, claiming stress. But she could feel him slipping away. The warmth in his eyes dimmed. His phone started buzzing late at night, and he turned it face down every time. Aria recognized the signs. She'd seen that secrecy before in political circles, but it broke her more deeply coming from her own husband. Still, she remained calm, watching the man she loved drift towards something dangerous. The shift became undeniable the night he canceled their anniversary dinner. Aria had spent all afternoon cooking his favorite meal, wearing the soft blue dress he once said made her look like a dream. But Cole called last minute, claiming a team crisis. When he arrived home hours later, his shirt carried the faintest trace of perfume, something floral and bold. Aria recognized it instantly. She had smelled it before in Mercerteca's lobby. It belonged to Jenna Lowe, Cole's junior colleague. Aria didn't confront him. Instead, she sat quietly on the edge of their bed while he showered, staring at the wall as her heart cracked silently. She had hidden her true world for him, only to realize he was hiding a betrayal from her. Months later, Aria's suspicion solidified one Thursday evening when she dropped by Cole's office unannounced with his favorite lunch. She hoped a small gesture might soften the growing distance between them, but as she approached the glass door, she froze. Through the blinds, she saw Jenna Lowe leaning over Cole's desk, too close, too comfortable, her laughter almost musical. Cole didn't notice Aria standing outside. He was smiling in a way Aria hadn't seen in months. Jenna touched his arm like she owned that space. Aria stepped back slowly, refusing to make a scene. Her hands trembled, but her face remained composed. She had been raised to hide storms behind a calm expression. She walked away quietly, realizing the affair she feared might already be consuming her marriage. Cole didn't come home until nearly midnight that night. Aria sat on the couch waiting, her fingers laced tightly in her lap, her heart bruised but steady. When he finally walked in, he looked surprised to find her awake. "Long day," he mumbled, tossing his jacket aside. Aria nodded, searching his face for any hint of the man she married. His eyes wouldn't meet hers. "Was Jenna working late too?" she asked softly. Cole stiffened, his jaw tightening before he snapped. "Why are you checking up on me?" The tone cut deeper than any confession could. Aria didn't argue. She simply whispered, "I thought we were a team." He muttered something under his breath and disappeared into the bedroom, leaving Aria alone, staring into the quiet darkness where her trust once lived. Over the next weeks, Jenna's name slipped into conversations too often, always casually, always conveniently. Cole praised her presentation skills, her dedication, her fresh ideas. Aria listened with a polite smile, but inside, her heart was dimming. She saw how Cole lit up whenever his phone vibrated. She saw how quickly he hid the screen. She heard him humming in the hallway after late-night strategy meetings. She wasn't naive. She wasn't weak. She simply understood that confronting a man drowning in ego would only push him further into the arms of the woman, whispering flattery into his ear. Instead, Aria observed in silence, memorizing every shift in his behavior, preparing her heart for the truth she didn't want to face. The affair became undeniable on a rainy Saturday morning when Aria accidentally answered Cole's phone while he showered. Jenna's voice poured through the speaker, sultry, playful, far too intimate. "Last night was perfect," she whispered. "I'm still thinking about you." Aria didn't need to hear more. She ended the call calmly, placed the phone where she found it, and walked to the window, letting the soft patter of rain ground her. Her chest tightened, but no tears came. She had loved Cole with sincerity, and he had betrayed her without hesitation. When Cole stepped out of the bathroom, Aria kissed his cheek gently and told him breakfast was ready. She didn't confront him. She simply started the quiet process of letting go. Jenna's boldness increased once she realized Cole would not resist her advances. She lingered around him at work, sent him flirtatious messages, and even left lipstick-stained notes in his jacket pocket. Cole began treating Aria as an inconvenience, someone occupying space he wished belonged to Jenna. Aria noticed how he spoke about their future less and less, how his affection felt forced, how his eyes drifted whenever she mentioned dreams they once shared. She didn't chase him. She didn't beg. Aria believed that love should not require begging. Instead, she retreated emotionally, carrying herself with grace while her heart fractured quietly beneath the weight of betrayal. Jenna, oblivious of the destruction she caused, reveled in the attention, unaware her own life would soon collapse under the weight of her lies. Aria started spending evenings alone, sitting by the window of their penthouse, staring at the city lights while Cole claimed urgent meetings. She never confronted him, not out of fear, but out of dignity. Her mother once taught her, "The truth always arrives when it's ready. Let it reveal itself." Aria followed that wisdom. She began journaling her thoughts, documenting the subtle red flags she had ignored, the unanswered calls, the cold tone, the shallow excuses. She kept these notes not as evidence, but as emotional armor. She wasn't preparing to fight for him anymore. She was preparing to leave him with her self-respect intact. Her love hadn't failed. Cole simply wasn't the man he pretended to be when he first held her heart. One evening, Aria overheard Cole on a call with Jenna while he stood on the balcony. His voice softened in ways it hadn't for her in months. "I'm working on it," he whispered. "Just give me time. I want us to be together properly." Aria froze behind the living room curtains, her breath catching painfully. It wasn't just an affair. Cole was planning a future with Jenna. Jenna, the junior colleague who wanted his money, his position, and the power that came with being tied to him. Aria's heart didn't break this time. It felt eerily calm, like she had finally reached the end of a road she'd been walking alone. She stepped back quietly, deciding she would let Cole believe his fantasy, just until she gathered the strength to walk away forever. Aria began preparing her exit silently. She rented a small apartment under an alias, transferred her personal items slowly, and stored important documents in a safety box her father's security team didn't even know she accessed. She didn't tell a soul, not even Governor Kingsley. She wanted to handle this alone. She cooked Cole's meals, kissed his cheek, watched him lie effortlessly, and kept the truth folded neatly behind her steady eyes. The more Cole drifted toward Jenna, the clearer Aria's path became. She didn't want revenge. She wanted peace. The woman Cole believed was fragile was, in reality, preparing to set herself free with quiet strength. Jenna's lies grew bolder. She began hinting to colleagues that Cole cared for her more than he should. She bragged about expensive dinners Cole paid for, gifts he bought, and promises he whispered. What she didn't mention was her husband, Evan Lowe, who had begun noticing changes at home. Evan wasn't a fool. He saw the late nights, the secretive messages, the sudden distance. He followed her once, saw her get into Cole's car, and the betrayal hit him like a hammer. He didn't confront her yet. He waited. Meanwhile, Spencer Drake, Jenna's second affair partner, also started asking questions. The woman juggling 3 worlds didn't realize how fragile her lies were. And Aria watched everything unfold quietly, knowing the truth always comes crashing down at the perfect moment. By this point, Cole was fully consumed by Jenna. He came home smelling of her perfume, speaking to Aria with impatience, sometimes even irritation. He accused Aria of being emotionally distant, unaware she had already packed away the last pieces of her trust. Aria didn't fight back. She simply whispered, "I hope you find what you're looking for." Cole scoffed, thinking she was weak, thinking she would never leave. Jenna had poisoned his mind with lies, telling him Aria wasn't ambitious, wasn't exciting, was enough. Cole believed her without hesitation. Meanwhile, Aria folded her clothes into small travel bags hidden beneath the bed. She had made her decision. She would leave after the gala. He would never see her break, and he would never see her coming. 3 weeks before the gala, Aria noticed a strange shift in Cole's behavior. He no longer hid his attachment to Jenna. He openly praised her in conversations, comparing Aria to Jenna in subtle, cutting ways. "Jenna is hungry for success," he said once, not realizing how deeply those words pierced. Aria responded with silence, her calmness irritating him further. He mistook her restraint for weakness, unaware it was the last layer of strength she had left. That night, as he showered, Aria opened her journal and wrote only one line. "Love shouldn't feel like begging." She closed the book gently, knowing she had entered the final days of her marriage. Cole spent the evening texting Jenna while Aria quietly folded away pieces of her life, preparing for the ending she already knew was inevitable. Cole began staying out later than ever, claiming urgent work projects even though Aria knew the truth. Jenna's name appeared on his caller, ID more than his own wife's. Aria didn't track his movements or check his messages. She didn't need to. His distance spoke louder than anything she could have found on a screen. The love that once felt warm and grounding now felt cold and unfamiliar. Aria noticed he had started wearing cologne Jenna once complimented. He bought new suits without consulting her, hidden receipts tucked into his pockets. She didn't argue. She simply observed, storing every detail like evidence in her heart. Quietly, she reminded herself that she deserved more than the remnants of a man who no longer saw her worth. During one heated week, Cole stopped coming home at all. He sent short messages. Busy, late, don't wait up. Aria slept on her side of the bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering how she could love someone who had become a stranger. She didn't reach out to Jenna. She didn't call Evan. She didn't even confide in her father. She faced the pain alone, a strength she had inherited from her mother. When Cole finally showed up 3 days later, he carried Jenna's perfume so strongly that Aria could smell it from across the room. He didn't apologize. He simply asked, "What's for dinner?" Aria turned away, realizing the man she loved was gone. She began mentally releasing him, piece by piece, preparing for the day she would walk away forever. Aria decided to visit her father in Charlottesville that weekend, not to reveal everything, but to breathe. Governor Kingsley noticed her quietness instantly. "You're fading," he said gently, scanning her face with political precision and fatherly concern. Aria smiled weakly, assuring him she was fine, but he knew she wasn't. Still, he respected her boundaries. She stood on the terrace overlooking the sweeping fields she grew up running through, remembering simpler days before love complicated her world. She wanted to tell her father the truth, but she couldn't, not until she handled it herself. She returned to Richmond with renewed resolve. The gala would be her ending. She would honor her vows until then. After that, she would reclaim her life. Back in the penthouse, Cole barely acknowledged her return. He sat on the couch scrolling through his phone, grinning at messages Aria didn't need to read to know belonged to Jenna. "We need to talk," Aria whispered. Her voice steadied though her heart trembled. Cole didn't look up. "Can it wait?" he muttered. Aria nodded, though she knew the conversation would never happen. She watched him, really watched him, for the first time in months. The man she fell in love with was buried beneath ego, lust, and insecurity. She realized she wasn't losing a husband. She was letting go of a mistake. That night, she placed her packed bags in the closet and rehearsed the goodbyes she planned to say after the gala. Cole slept beside her, without touching her once. The week of the gala arrived, and Aria felt strangely calm. She moved through the penthouse with a softness that confused Cole. He mistook her peace for submission, telling himself she would always forgive him. Jenna fed this confidence, whispering that Aria wasn't strong enough to leave. They didn't realize Aria was in the final stages of emotionally detaching from a life that had betrayed her. She spent the nights writing unsent letters, thanking Cole for the good memories and forgiving him for the bad ones. She didn't want revenge, only closure. Her mother once said, "When a woman leaves quietly, she's already gone." Aria now understood. She wasn't waiting for Cole anymore. She was waiting for the moment she could walk away without looking back. Cole's arrogance grew daily. He boasted to colleagues about his rising reputation, how the board was noticing his leadership, and how he was surrounded by supportive team members. A thinly veiled reference to Jenna. He didn't hide it anymore. Aria caught him once adjusting his tie before leaving for work and heard him whisper softly, "Jenna likes this color." She felt her heart twist but didn't confront him. She only smiled, a smile so calm it unnerved him. He brushed it off, assuming she was too naive to understand. But Aria wasn't naive, she was strategic. She knew a storm was coming, and she no longer felt the need to protect Cole from it. The truth was sharpening itself, and soon it would cut through every lie that had cracked their marriage. As the gala approached, whispers around Mercer Tech grew louder. Aria overheard two colleagues talking in a lobby restroom, unaware she was in the stall. "Jenna and Cole think no one knows," one said. "Please, everyone knows." The other laughed bitterly. His wife deserves better. Aria closed her eyes, exhaling a slow, painful breath. She didn't feel embarrassment, only sadness that her marriage had become a spectacle. She left quietly, shoulders squared, dignity intact. That night, she stood before the mirror in her bedroom and whispered, "Just a few more days." Her reflection seemed stronger than before, like the suffering had chiseled her into someone unbreakable. Cole's betrayal wouldn't define her. It would reveal her. 3 days before the gala, Jenna accidentally sent a message meant for Cole directly to Aria. It read, "Soon. She won't matter. You deserve someone who elevates you." Aria stared at the message, feeling an ache she didn't show. She deleted it without responding. She didn't need proof. The truth had already been living in her home for months. That evening, Cole acted unusually sweet, complimenting her dress as if trying to mask guilt. Aria played along, offering polite smiles, but her mind was already beyond him. She slept with her back turned toward him, feeling the marriage rot between them like a dead flower left too long in a vase. The end was near. She could feel it. On the morning of the gala, Aria woke earlier than usual and prepared herself with deliberate care. She wore a long, elegant gown that flowed behind her like quiet royalty, even though no one in Cole's world knew her true lineage. Cole watched her from the doorway, momentarily stunned by her beauty. "You look nice," he muttered, unable to form a better compliment. Aria smiled softly, sensing this would be the last time she dressed for him. She slipped her wedding ring on, not because she felt like his wife anymore, but because she planned to return it that night. The gala would mark the end of their story. And though Cole believed it was just another event he could use to elevate his ego, he had no idea that it would become the night that destroyed everything he thought he controlled. That night, the gala begins. The Willow Crest Grand Ballroom shimmered under chandeliers shaped like falling stars. Every corner buzzed with anticipation as Richmond's elite arrived in designer suits and glittering gowns. Aria walked beside Cole with quiet poise, her silver dress trailing behind her like moonlight. She knew this was her last night as his wife, yet her expression remained unreadable. Cole strutted confidently, greeting board members and shaking hands as if he carried the world effortlessly. Jenna lurked in the crowd, wearing a fitted emerald dress and smirking each time Cole glanced her way. Aria noticed it all, the secret smiles, the stolen looks, but her face remained calm. She had already accepted the truth. Tonight wasn't about saving a marriage. It was about ending one with grace. What Aria didn't know was that this evening would unravel far more than her relationship. It would destroy Cole's entire illusion. Cole barely spoke to Aria once they stepped inside. Instead, he hovered near Jenna, laughing too loudly and placing his hand on her lower back in a way no married man should. People noticed. Whispers began like faint whine through trees. Aria heard every word, but kept her posture perfect. She refused to crumble in a room full of people who didn't know her worth. When the board chairman approached to greet them, Cole pretended Aria was merely a decorative accessory, barely acknowledging her presence. "You're awfully quiet tonight," he muttered with irritation. Aria simply smiled, her silence louder than any argument she could have made. It infuriated him. "Maybe you should try acting like a real partner for once," he snapped softly. Aria inhaled slowly, knowing his cruelty would peak before the night ended. When the host announced Cole would be giving a speech, he grew visibly excited. This was his moment to shine. Aria stood by his side, maintaining the image of supportive wife even as her heart felt like fragile glass. Jenna positioned herself at the front of the room, staring at Cole with pride that didn't belong to her. Aria watched it all quietly. She had prepared herself for this humiliation. She expected cold words, maybe a subtle dig meant to belittle her, but she didn't anticipate the level of betrayal that Cole was about to unleash. She caught sight of Jenna's impatient grin and felt a strange calm settle over her. If this was the night her marriage died, she would bear it with dignity. Cole grabbed the microphone with exaggerated confidence, his ego inflating with each pair of eyes turned toward him. "Tonight isn't just about the company," he began, scanning the room dramatically. "It's about acknowledging the people who truly push us forward." Aria expected him to mention her loyalty, her sacrifices, their marriage. Instead, he gestured toward Jenna. "Some people," he continued loudly, "are the reason I'm still standing. They challenge me. They inspire me. They understand me." Jenna stepped forward slightly, lips parting in a triumphant smile. The crowd murmured in confusion. Aria's heartbeat slowed, her breath steady. Cole wasn't done. "And maybe," he said, turning back toward Aria, "maybe it's time to stop pretending that certain relationships are working." The ballroom fell silent instantly. Aria felt the world tilt, but she didn't flinch. Gasps erupted across the room. Some guests stared at Aria with sympathy, others with curiosity. Cole's tone sharpened, fueled by arrogance and Jenna's smirk. "Aria," he said loudly, "you've been holding me back. You don't fit into the world I'm trying to build. You become irrelevant." For a moment, even Jenna's smile faltered at his cruelty. Aria's eyes lifted slowly to meet Cole's, not with tears but with serenity that unnerved him. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. She didn't even look embarrassed. She simply existed in quiet strength. That calmness made Cole angrier. He wanted her broken. He wanted her humiliated. But the woman he thought was fragile stood taller than he ever expected. And that was when the night took a turn none of them saw coming. Just as Cole opened his mouth to continue his public attack, a booming voice cut through the ballroom. "Jenna!" A man stormed in from the entrance, eyes filled with betrayal and hurt. It was Evan Lowe, Jenna's real husband. The crowd turned, stunned. Jenna's face drained of color. "What are you doing here?" she stammered. Evan held up photos, clear pictures of Jenna climbing into Cole's car, kissing him in parking lots, leaving hotels at midnight. You told me you were working double shifts. Evan growled. Cole's confidence evaporated instantly. But before he could speak, another voice shouted, "She told me the same lies." Spencer Drake stepped forward, his jaw clenched. Jenna stood frozen between two men whose lives she had shattered. Now the room wasn't staring at Aria. It was staring at Jenna. The room erupted. Conversations collided. People stared, whispered, pointed. Jenna stumbled backward, shaking as Evan and Spencer closed in from opposite sides. Cole stood stiffly on stage, watching his fantasy crumble in real time. "Jenna, what is this?" he asked, voice cracking with disbelief. But Jenna had no defense. Her double life unfolded like a movie before everyone's eyes. Evan threw the photos into the air, the pictures fluttering across the ballroom floor like fallen truths. "She's been cheating on both of us," Spencer said, disgust coding every word. Aria watched, her face calm, her heart strangely still. The humiliation Cole intended for her had flipped violently back onto him. Suddenly, he wasn't the powerful man exposing his wife. He was the fool who humiliated himself by choosing a woman who was playing him all along. Cole's voice quivered as he stuttered, "Jenna, tell them this isn't true." But Jenna didn't answer. Her silence was an admission louder than any confession. The board members stared at Cole with horror, realizing he had been entangled with not just a subordinate, but a married woman cheating on multiple men. His reputation crumbled instantly. Someone whispered, "Is this the kind of man leading our company?" Another muttered, "What a disgrace." Cole felt his career slipping through his fingers. But Aria? She simply stepped off the stage, her heels clicking softly against the marble floor. She didn't turn back. She didn't look at Cole. She didn't look at Jenna. The entire room parted for her like royalty, even though they still had no idea who she truly was. Cole jumped down from the stage, panic rising. "Aria, wait, we need to talk." He reached out, but she kept walking, her face a mask of serene detachment. He grabbed her wrist instinctively. She slowly turned her head, her gaze cool and sharp. "Let go, Cole," she whispered, not in anger, but in finality. Something in her tone made him release her immediately. For the first time, he realized she wasn't devastated. She wasn't broken. She wasn't pleading. She was done. That terrified him more than any scandal. Jenna reached for Cole in desperation, but he jerked away, finally seeing her for who she truly was. Meanwhile, Aria walked through the golden doors and into the night air, a woman reclaiming her life one step at a time. Outside, the cool night wrapped around Aria like a gentle embrace. Her driver, one Cole had never met, opened the door of a sleek black SUV. Aria stepped inside without hesitating. She didn't look back at the ballroom, the chaos, the lies, or the man who had sought to break her. As the door closed, she whispered to herself, "It's over." Inside the ballroom, Cole stood frozen in the wreckage of his choices. His board members avoided him. Jenna collapsed into a chair, crying as Evan stormed out, and Spencer shook his head in disgust. Cole looked toward the exit where Aria had disappeared and felt something cold crawl into his chest. He had spent months chasing validation from a woman who deceived everyone, while destroying the one woman who had loved him genuinely. And he didn't yet know his true nightmare was only beginning. The next morning, the truth unfolds. Cole woke the next morning with a pounding headache and a sinking dread he couldn't escape. His phone buzzed nonstop, missed calls, emails, headlines. When he finally unlocked the screen, the first news article froze him cold. Governor Richard Kingsley seen escorting daughter Aria Kingsley from Willow Crest Gala. Cole blinked rapidly, reading the headline over and over. Daughter? Aria Kingsley? His breath caught. He clicked the article. There she was, Aria, standing beside the governor, her hand gently resting on his arm, her face calm and dignified. The article mentioned her philanthropic work, her family's billion-dollar enterprises, her political influence. Cole's knees buckled. The woman he discarded publicly, the woman he belittled, the woman he thought was beneath him, was royalty in her own world, and he had humiliated her in front of everyone. Cold shock rippled through Cole's veins. He Googled her name frantically, each article striking him like a blow. Aria Kingsley, founder of youth charity initiatives, keynote speaker at national conferences, board member of 3 major organizations. Pictures showed her in elegant gowns, shaking hands with presidents, standing beside global leaders. Cole's hand shook violently. He realized she had given all of that up just to live a quiet life with him. She chose him when she could have chosen any man in power. And he threw her away for a woman who betrayed him. Cole stumbled into the bathroom, gripping the sink as nausea rose. His reflection stared back at him, devastated, hollow, ashamed. He whispered her name, but the only answer was a silence he'd created. By noon, the consequences hit like a tidal wave. The board held an emergency meeting without him. Investors demanded answers. Evan and Spencer leaked proof of Jenna's workplace misconduct, dragging Cole into the scandal. HR summoned him. Journalists camped outside the building. Cole's boss finally delivered the blow. Your behavior has compromised the company. You're suspended, effective immediately. Cole's chest tightened as he packed his office. The same office he once boasted about. Jenna tried calling him, but he blocked her number with shaking hands. As he carried his box to the elevator, colleagues avoided him, whispering. He had thought Aria was a weak link in his life, but now he saw clearly. She had been the only strong part of it, and he destroyed her. Within days, Cole's life collapsed entirely. Governor Kingsley never contacted him directly. He didn't need to. Political influence speaks louder than personal confrontation. Contracts associated with Mercer Tech were suddenly reevaluated. Sponsors withdrew support. Banks began routine audits on Cole's accounts. The landlord of their penthouse sent an eviction notice citing financial instability. Cole called every contact he had, begging for help, but doors slammed one after another. His credit cards froze. His reputation was shredded online. Jenna vanished from the city, fleeing her ruined marriage in public disgrace. Cole found himself in a cheap motel room, staring at peeling wallpaper and wondering how he'd become the villain of his own life. He clutched Aria's old wedding ring in his hand, shaking with regret, so deep it terrified him. Late one night, as rain hammered the motel roof, Cole opened a box he had never touched before, a small wooden chest Aria left behind. Inside were photographs of her childhood. Aria at charity events, Aria at political dinners, Aria standing proudly beside her father during his campaigns. Letters from global leaders thanking her for her work lay beneath the photos. Cole's throat tightened painfully. She had lived a life of influence, grace, and expectation, and yet she chose a quiet life with him. She gave him love without conditions, and he repaid her with betrayal. Cole pressed a photo to his chest and sobbed into the darkness, finally understanding that he had lost the greatest blessing he'd ever been given. Meanwhile, Aria flourished. Her father welcomed her home with open arms, never once bringing up her pain. She resumed her philanthropic work, pouring her heart into helping underprivileged youth and rebuilding her sense of purpose. She moved into a private residence, far from the noise of Richmond. The world learned her name again, Aria Kingsley, graceful, compassionate, unbreakable. Reporters praised her resilience after the private marital incident. Though she never spoke publicly about Cole, she didn't need to. Her silence was more powerful than any statement. She focused on healing, allowing time to smooth the bruises Cole left on her heart. Slowly, she became stronger, more radiant than before. Her suffering didn't define her, it refined her. Months passed, and Cole attempted to rebuild his life, taking construction jobs and working long hours just to afford food. He lived alone, haunted by memories of Aria's gentle smile and the way she once held his hand. Sometimes he walked past the cafe where they first met, hoping fate might let him glimpse her again. But Aria never appeared. She had outgrown the world he dragged her into. One evening, after an exhausting shift, Cole collapsed on his motel bed and whispered, "I'm sorry," into the darkness. But apologies offered too late have nowhere to go. He understood now that love cannot be reclaimed once trust is destroyed. And Aria had every right to move forward without looking back. The first time Cole saw Aria again, it wasn't planned. He was delivering renovation supplies to the Sapphire Arts Pavilion, and when he stepped inside, his breath stopped. Aria walked across the stage in a navy gown, addressing a room full of supporters with poise and quiet power. She glowed, confident, graceful, untouchable. Cole hid behind a pillar, unable to move. She wasn't the woman he broke. She was the woman who rebuilt herself. His chest tightened painfully. For a moment, Aria looked in his direction, her gaze passing over him without recognition. Not because she didn't see him, but because he no longer belonged in her world. He lowered his head in shame. After the event, Aria stepped outside into the cool evening breeze. Cole followed at a distance, unsure why, perhaps searching for closure or maybe punishment. When she reached her car, he finally whispered, "Aria!" She turned, surprised but composed. Cole looked smaller somehow, tired, worn, humbled. "I just wanted to say," he began, voice breaking. Aria held up a gentle hand. "You don't owe me anything, Cole, and I don't owe you forgiveness." Her tone wasn't cruel. It was peaceful. "I loved you genuinely," she added softly. "But you loved who you thought I was, not who I am." Cole felt tears sting his eyes. She gave him a small, bittersweet smile. "Take care of yourself." And then she walked away. Cole stood alone in the parking lot long after Aria's car disappeared down the quiet street. The night smelled of rain and endings. He wiped his face with trembling hands, realizing that this was the moment he finally understood loss. Not the kind you recover from, but the kind that humbles you for the rest of your life. Aria didn't hate him. She didn't curse him. She didn't seek revenge. Her strength was silent, dignified, final. Cole returned to his motel that night, carrying a truth he could never escape. He destroyed the one woman who had loved him with purity, and he had no one to blame but himself. Meanwhile, Aria continued forward, stronger, wiser, and free. Their story ended not in reunion, but in the quiet, irreversible distance between a mistake and the woman who survived it.